about the bad things? What are you worried about?
The flip side of flexibility is that you're kind of always working.
Absolutely. That is one of the ones that I think academics struggle with the most, that I struggle with the most. There is never, and I mean never, a time when you feel like, okay, I can just relax, I got nothing to do. When you come home at the end of the day, you don't feel like, okay, I'm done. You feel like I should be working. And the standards for productivity in big research institutions are huge. And they require enormous hours, and they require, again, the boundaries between your job and the rest of your life are very porous. And it's very easy for your job to take over everything else and to always be the priority. So you never do go rock climbing in the middle of the week because you always feel like you should be writing. You always feel like you should be doing something, and that is something that's very, very stressful and hard to deal with in terms of that balance, for sure. What else?
It seems a bit competitive too.
Yeah. It's very hierarchical. People rank one another in all kinds of formal and informal ways. Sometimes the competition doesn't seem as overt as in other contexts, but believe me, it's there. I had the experience of going to a very big conference, the American Sociological Association, something like 5,000 sociologists from all over. And I've gone there with different name tags, depending on, like, as a graduate student from this university, when I worked at the Policy Research Institute, and people look at your name tags before they look at your face. And whether they think you're worth talking to and worth spending time with, it's in your name tag. I just probably blew the ears of everybody out there listening, pointing to the microphone. Yeah, it's hierarchical and it's competitive. And that can, in some places, it can be very collegial despite that. In other places, it can be very toxic. So that is definitely something to consider. What else? Any other bad things?
It doesn't feel like there are a lot of positions out there for someone. And it's like, once I'm done, it's not going to be a process of thinking about where I want to be. It's going to be where I can get my first job.
That is absolutely huge. And that is something that I think that students don't necessarily entirely understand. By the time they understand it, they're kind of hooked in already, and it's a bit late. But that is, to my mind, one of the biggest downsides, is that you have, realistically, the vast majority of people have very little choice about where they live. Okay, and there are all kinds of repercussions about that, right? So most other jobs will give you far more choice in your life about lifestyle, about where you want to live, There are only so many jobs in any given year. Only so many jobs in your area. So even if you're the most brilliant person on the market and everybody wants to hire you, well, there's still only a certain number of jobs in your area in certain geographic places in a range of like a year or two when you're on the market, right? And so it doesn't matter that your family's in Saskatchewan. There's no jobs in Saskatchewan. That's not where you're going if you want an academic career. You may end up in Florida. And when your mom gets sick, you're not going to be there to visit her every day. Right? Or, say that you're a city person and you love living in Toronto and you love the amenities, and you may end up in Saskatchewan, which for you is not the place you want to be because it's not a big city. Don't have a lot of control over that. And that also has a lot of, add-on repercussions in terms of things like partners and who you're hooked up to and whether they're willing to move or able to move. And so it's not a trivial thing. So you don't get a lot of choice about where you live, and you may not get a job at all. You may not get a good job at all, In any given year, there's 5 or 10 people who get lots and lots of job offers at lots and lots of places, and then everybody's fighting over. And everybody else is scrambling for the leftovers, And odds are, statistically, for most of us, we're not going to be one of those 10 people. I mean, I hope you all are. But it's a risky proposition in many respects in terms of the number of years and poor pay as a graduate student, the teaching assistant, whatever, often takes a long time, and you may emerge at 30 or 32 or 34 or even 35, even older, You spend a lot of years with no retirement. You know, you're not making RSP contributions every year, and you emerge and look around and your hair is great and you got an eye twitch and you've got no job, or you've got a crappy job, you know. So you have to really, it's not a career that I recommend to most people. You have to really love what you do. You have to be willing to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to enjoy those years for what they are. And, you know, to have 4 years or 5 years or 6 years or however long it takes to study what I want is, you know, is a privilege and is a value in and of itself. And if at the end of that, you know, I find that I have to do something else. And the good news is the unemployment rate for PhDs is actually very low. You may not get a job in academia, but you'll probably get something. Then that's okay, you know. But if you feel like it's only going to be worthwhile for you if you end up with a job at a top flight university, I want to think about law school or something, you know, something else, right? Where it's a little more, the risks are a little less.